next experience reading apa NASA RRC lah.
I think he follow the hilaf punya.
Follow?
The hilaf ilmiah punya.
Something like that. In fact, he wanted to do a special book on Prof, you and I. What makes us read? When do we read? You don't mind? I will tell you. Because how thinkers read. Kita kali ada announcement. Ada. Except for ni. Ada Facebook live. Ada Facebook live.
Sekarang ni.
Ada live. Ada. I have to ask them.
How are you? How are the meeting dengan itu? Meeting dengan Australian punya.
Very good. Just now, there's a visit also from Yogyakarta, Pak Nurwono training about 7 from University Muhammadiyah, Ahmad Dahlan.
Oh, yang bikin to see to my house.
Yeah. And then
Ada yang mana?
they're interested our program like why in the future we can conduct.
Pak Mudidi.
Yeah.
Pak Mudidi.
Yeah, the election after the
Yeah, it is nice. Tapi after the program dia turn it off.
Thus, if wanting to bring about change, we need to treat ourselves like the best that we can be and understand the important principles of our religion properly.
Things that learn is that courage allows us to continue to evangelize truth in the midst of trials. So, it's justice and courage enables that. And courage itself becomes a necessary factor in realizing justice.
I learned that learning history is ordinary in these times as a seeker of knowledge, and having a correct worldview impacts how we make sense of this world, plus how we view and practice it. Secondly, viewing history with the correct worldview has an immense impact on how we understand our heritage.
A seed sown that are buried
Sadang lah minta metra program dia.
Nizam tak ada.
Macam mana?
Dia ikut komando. As promised.
Sorry all the way daripada ni, daripada apa? Daripada Perak.
Thank you. Your old friend.
Murid-murid yang lambat duduk belakang. I'll be following.
We still have time for one, don't worry. How do you find the translation so far? Yeah, how do you think so far? Yeah, there's still mistakes. It's not finished. Thank you.
So Aziz at the back.
Inshallah. Alhamdulillah. Looking for you. that on now?
Yes.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for coming on. I was quite a reprieve, I think, for many of us that finally can breathe clearly after many weeks of under the haze, and it's nice to see fresh faces. And the heavy rain that we had earlier may have delayed some of you arriving. That's why we started a little bit late. On behalf of Dr. Khalid Muhammad, the director of CASIS, and the benefactors of this program, Hakim, Ta'dib, and QSR Brands, we welcome you to this Saturday night lecture series. It has now become an institution where people come not only for the lecture, which is the main attraction, but also a meeting of friends and colleagues, and sometimes adversaries. Friends from far and near are here, alhamdulillah. We have like Adian, Rono, and Pak Indra coming all the way from Jogja and Jakarta. We have people from Sabah, we have people from Perak. We have people from all over, alhamdulillah. This is the fourth installment of the series in this particular edition, and we have been doing Saturday night lecture series. The tradition began at ISTA with Professor Abbas, and now it is now an institution here at CASIS UTM. Tonight, Professor Wan will go slowly now, bringing us into the book, and will bring us into a bit of the discussion about the metaphysics of Professor Abbas. For many of us, the word metaphysics can be like a scare word, almost like a boogeyman. Something that they say, well, this is something that has been stigmatized of things that we do here at ISTA, things that are high up in the air, but not actually touching ground, as they say. But as it is, as we had the rain today, rain began from something higher up, and things grow because of that. And it has been said that science and technology developed from philosophy, and that is an indubitable fact, and that cannot be denied. People who study intellectual history, receive ideas, know for a fact that from philosophy, that science, from science and technology. So without further ado, I'll call upon Professor Wan.
Thank you, Prof. Zaini Osman. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Assalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Just to remind ourselves that this series is our attempt to elaborate our humble work on the educational philosophy and practice of Professor Syed Muhammad Kalatas. And for the last several lectures, we elaborated aspects of his historical background and our reason for writing this humble book. In this session, I will begin to talk about the metaphysical worldview of our figure. The chapter is chapter 1 of the book. It's the shortest chapter in the book, and the most hardest, unfortunately, for me. When Prof. Nakib was writing a series of monographs, which later on compiled together to become what I regard as his most important work, Prolegomena to the Metaphysics of Islam, he was giving me piece by piece and told me when we were in the small bungalow of ISTEC before the official campus was completed in 1991, he told me that don't worry, read them carefully. Even if you understand, keep it in your mind. Don't worry about that. And I was already about more than 45 years of age at that time.
Yeah.
Of course, yesterday, I think our Honorable Minister of Education announced that they are instituting 2 courses for the undergraduate at our university, dealing with philosophy, ethics, and civilization, something which we have been doing at ISTEC and now at CASIS for the last 20 years. So we thought that is a wonderful announcement and wonderful attempt. But just like any attempt and announcement, it is not the announcement of that, but rather who are going to be teaching those courses. Where are they trained? And what perspective are they going to be deliberating the subject on? Because anything, if you deliberate on a different worldview, it becomes a different thing altogether. Anything, if the most important thing about God, about the Quran, about the Prophet, if the way of approach is from a different worldview, different philosophical perspective, the thing becomes an entirely different thing altogether. The grandfather of Prophet Al-Atas, Habib Abdullah bin Muhsin Al-Atas, reportedly made a very interesting observation, and it became famous among Al-Ba'id. He said that, and he was known as the Wali of Bogor. I used to visit that with Dr. Adian, with Dr. Khalif also. He said that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Abu Jahal looked at the same man, Muhammad bin Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But their worldviews were entirely diametrical. Abu Bakr saw that man for 13 years, 10 years in Mecca as nothing but a poor man. The nephew of Abu Talib, an orphan. Therefore, he became his opponent. But Abu Bakr, according to Habib Abdullah bin Muhsin Al-Atas, looked at that man from an entirely different philosophical and worldview perspective. Yes, the facts were true. He was poor. He was the nephew of Abu Talib. He was an orphan, but he was the last prophet of God. And not only that, he was the last person whom God would ever spoke to. After that, God never speak to anyone anymore in that direction, in that manner, in that form. And not only that, in the review of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and in the review of all Muslims who understand this thing, this review carefully, he is the best creation ever created, before or after. Therefore, anything that we do, anything that we understand and that we interpret depends on our worldview. And the worldview is grounded in metaphysics. In that metaphysics, there are perspectives about non-metaphysical things, about this world, about ourselves, and about the non-existent things. So today, inshallah, I will try to underline the importance of this worldview. Because among practical people, among scholars even, particularly in the Muslim world now, and particularly in this country, they tend to disparage, they tend to oppose and denigrate and discriminate those who are deliberating, explaining, and trying to make people understand the contents of our worldview without realizing it, because they thought that these are purely insignificant, theoretical, something high up in the air, when we are burdened with real existential challenges, poverty, division, backwardness, haze, traffic jam, and many other things. You remember in 1974, a simple farmer in Xi'an, China, he dug the ground and keep on digging, and then lo and behold, he discovered 8,000 exact replica of soldiers and generals with chariots and horses and food items and many other things. That was buried together with the Emperor King Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. Historians ask, what made that first emperor spend so much money and craft exact size replica of the whole army battalion with all equipment? Why did somebody do like that? The conclusion they reached was that he was thinking from his worldview that when he dies, he's going to be confronting with similar kind of struggles and battles. But he was not sure what kind of battles will he be confronting after he leaves this world. The fact that he's going to leave this world is certain, because rulers before him have left. Many of his family members have left his world. Therefore, he spent a lot of his time, he sacrificed a lot in order to prepare for the other world. In 1960s also, much earlier than that, Professor S.G.F. Brandon, Samuel George Frederick Brandon, he was a priest and a scholar of comparative religion from the University of Manchester. He wrote many books. One of his books is The Idea of Life and Death in the Major Religions, published in 1967. He studied about the graves of earlier people, of earlier civilizations, like the Pharaonic civilization, Babylonian civilization, Chinese, Indian, and African civilization. And in all of these early graveyards, naturally they found skeletons of dead people, dead kings. But in this graveyard also they found elements of things that are supposed to be helping them on the other life. Pots and pans, coinage, and food items also. So he concluded that all earlier civilizations, they were thinking that this life is not all there is to it. In their worldview, that this world is not all there is to it. There is something else after this world, but they were not sure what is it. How are we going to be dealing in this other, when we call the river of life, to the river of death? But that worldview made them worship all the powers of nature. So they worship the sun, the moon, the rivers, because they were confronting with all these forces, but they were not sure in their worldview. Worldviews are very important. Martin Buber, one of the most prominent Jewish thinkers. He was a Jew, he's a Jew, but he was not a Zionist, although he supported Israel. When he supported Israel, he was wanting to have the Jews living together with the Arabs, not depriving them. He wrote works on Hebrew humanism, and he criticized the narrow nationalistic ideas and activities of the Zionists. They was after Second World War. And in many of his writings, he talked about how the Jews need to go back to their traditional worldview, as understood by Moses, by the great teachers, as mentioned in the Talmud. Because that worldview is rooted in the idea of God, the idea of accountability of right and wrong, which are clear, not vague, not changing from time to time. In one of his writings, he referred to a very old and ancient non-Jewish Roman general called Scipio Africanus, or Scipio the Great, Scipio. It's very interesting. Scipio is regarded by Western military expert as the greatest general in the history of mankind. Why? Because he was able to stop Hannibal from conquering Rome. And to them, Rome is the ultimate glory of the Western Empire. So whoever was successful to stop Hannibal from Carthage, who went around Spain and come down from the north to the south, which trembled, which made the feet of the Roman citizens tremble, he was the one who stopped Hannibal. That was a couple of 100 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. Martin Buber quoted Scipio Africanus. And what did Scipio say? This grand general in the history of mankind, according to the Western historian. A very practical man. But still, he refers to the importance of worldview and philosophy in order to be truly human. I quote, as translated by Martin Buber. Scipio Africanus was saying that just as we take our horses back to the trainer at the end of a campaign, so after every political victory, we should again submit to the discipline of the philosopher, lest we lose touch with humanitas, our being human. Very interesting. A very able general, a very successful one, put that as a matter of principle, which is quoted by thinkers and scholars after that for military, for soldiers to retain or to regain their humanity, they must go back and learn from their philosophers. Of course, the Romans have got no prophets. And he was talking about the successful one. When they have finished a successful campaign, of course, if you are defeated, of course, it's very easy to go to philosophers, isn't it? There's nothing else to do. But you are victorious. And I'm not referring to politicians, I'm referring to generals. And when I read this quotation, I was reminded of the Prophet's great statement, far superior than the statement of Scipio, who was saying that when we return from the smaller battle, we are going to a bigger battle. There is a battle against ourselves. And to win this battle, you must have a very clear worldview of who you are, what success is about, what victory is all about, what is the meaning of success, of happiness, of justice, and so forth. Again, I want to underline that worldview is very important. According to Gilbert K. Chesterton, a very prominent British poet and playwright who died in 1936, he said that the most practical thing about a man is how he looks at the world and his worldview. Christians also think like that. There is a discussion now about the need to develop Catholic worldview among the Catholics. One of them quoted the late Pope John Paul II. They say that the Catholic worldview is a way of understanding reality in light of the total truth about God, man, and the world. Because a worldview influences how we look at everything in life and how we think and act in all circumstances, though we may not even be aware of having a worldview. Only one worldview is correct, according to him. And that is true to the way things are. And that is the worldview based on the Catholic faith. Because the Catholic, he believes that his worldview is the only correct one. And from that worldview, they will determine what is right, what is wrong, how to behave, and how not to behave. You remember, of course, Kemal Atatürk, the one who shaped modern Turkey for the last 50 years. He had many teachers. one of his most important teachers, whose graveyard is in Sultan Ahmed, before the Kabut Bazaar. I used to pass by his graveyard every time I go there. His name is Dia Gorka. He wrote a very important book, The Principle of Turkish Nationalism. And in that book, and I read this book when I was with Abdul Rahman in Chicago. We borrowed from the library, where Prof. Zani used to work part-time, because he had no money at that time. Now they have more money than that, but not in those days. Dia Gorka quoted Edmond Rostand, a French poet and playwright, a brilliant one, because Rostand at that time was the youngest to be admitted to the French Academy in 1902. What did Rostand say? Rostand said that although it was useful for a military commander to know how many soldiers, weapons, and ammunition the opposing enemy had, it was even more useful for him to know the philosophy of the enemy's army. In truth, when the armies and two nations are at war, the philosophy of the two sides are the principal factors determining which is to be the victorious. So although worldview operates in the mind only, but it is foundation of everything that people think about. It's foundation of what they do, whether they realize it or not. But unfortunately, in our midst, among the Muslims nowadays, those who are trying to teach, elaborate, and spread among the educated people and among the masses the right understanding of worldview are regarded as non-practical, wasting public money, not solving our problem. Therefore, they are sidelined. Their funds are being deprived, and they are not being given their just place in serving society. Because of this misunderstanding that worldviews, although they operate in the mind, although they are theoretical, but they are not contributing to the solution of practical problems. Whereas generals who are regarded as the best in the history of a particular civilization, even though they lived 1,000 years ago, are still regard worldviews are very important. Not only in action, but to be human from their particular perspective. According to Prof. Michael Atas, just like all many great Muslim thinkers and scholars, the worldview of Islam is a vision of Islam or the nature of reality and truth. Meaning that what Islam teaches us regarding what exists and what is true and what is not true. Of course, it depends on how we understand truth. It depends on knowledge, and which we will elaborate in later sessions. It depends on the sources of this knowledge and the criteria that we set to understand which is true knowledge and which is false knowledge. But basically, it is the vision that Islam gives to us pertaining what exists and what is real, and what is right and what is wrong. This is basically in a very simplified sense. Brilliant minds from the Greeks all the way until now, who are not given the blessing of God to understand some of these most important matters, fail to understand the nature of reality as such, although they may know many things about many other things of this world. Do you know the great physicist, astrophysicist, Stephen Hawking, who died just a few years ago? Stephen Hawking died, I think, you must excuse me here, yeah? Yeah, he died last year, March 14th. As a thinker, he understands more than anybody else pertaining to the physical nature of the universe. What is out there in the universe? But when it comes to the nature of existence as such, of God, he is entirely clueless. He became like a child in that sense. He was interviewed in El Mundo September 2014. He said that we science, we know the mind of God, but if there is a God, which there isn't, and he said, I'm an atheist. So you wonder, a brilliant mind who knows a lot about the universe as a whole, but seems to be clueless about something that the mind cannot capture through science, because with science we know the mind of God, if there is a God. He is putting the weight of understanding the total reality through science. This again is the effect of Vienna Circle, which we'll mention later on. Another great person in Southeast Asia, I say great because he has done many great things in his country, the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. For him to be able to develop his country into one of major economic power in Asia at least is something to be recognized and respected. But when it comes to understanding the nature of reality as such, his knowledge falls short, and he was not mindful of that, because that was the level of his knowledge, and he was very frank about that. In an interview with New York Times reporter Seth Maidan, okay, by the way, Mr. Lee died 23rd of March 2015. He was asked by Maidan, M-Y-D-A-N-S. This interview is found, you can Google that. It's found, I read that thing first in New York Times. It was reprinted in International Herald Tribune also, but you can Google that. Interview with Maidan, Lee Kuan Yew. You can full interview there. He was asked because at that time his wife was dying, and she was in a state of unconsciousness for several years. So the reporter asked him, Mr. Lee, what do you do when you visit your wife daily, because she was treated in their home? It's very interesting, you see. He said, but when you reach that stage, you may wonder more than ever what is next. Meaning that when people are dying, you are thinking, what's there after death? The reality after this life, like all the previous great rulers or above, the first emperor of China, the pharaoh, they all wondering about those things. Mr. Lee answered, well, what is next, I do not know. That means he's an agnostic, a very frank one. Nobody has ever come back. The Muslims say that there are 70 huris, beautiful women out there. But nobody has come back to confirm this. So they asked, what do you do when you meet your wife? Well, he said that, I know she loves poetry, she loves literature, so I read novels, recite poetry. My telling the story is not to condemn or to judge Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. By no means, we are not trying to do that. We are trying to say that great minds, even if they are not benefited by knowledge of the prophets, then those matters will become a gray area for them. Because knowledge about the death, after death, will not come from human reasoning. Neither will come from human experience, because nobody who experienced that will come back and tell us what is there on the other side. the Jews, of course. Right now, in their worldview, particularly among the Jews in America, there is an increasing influence of secularism, and they admit that. There have been studies and studies about the transformation of the Jewish situation in the West, particularly in America. Politically, economically, they all admit that they are going toward a more advanced and more successful position ever before. I mean, more than previously in their history. Never before they are respected. Never before they are honored. But they also admitted that the rise of secularization makes many of them becoming atheistic. And in the recent study of the essence of Judaism, more and more are saying that it's not necessary anymore to define a Jew as believing in God. They say a Jew is somebody who believes and proud of their history, believes in the covenant that Moses has made with God, and what Abraham has made also with God. But it's not necessary to be a Jew to believe in God. This is not the majority yet, but slowly they are becoming more and more dominant because they come from Reform Jew, the second largest group in America. So worldviews can change. Many centuries ago, people like Maimonides, one of the most prominent rabbi who lived during the time of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, and used to be also, according to some report, to be a physician to Salahuddin. He made this 13 principle, which became famous, although not accepted by all Jews, but became famous because every Jew would try to respond to that, either you accept or you don't accept. But still it became dominant. First, Maimonides said God exists. You cannot be a Jew unless you accept this notion. And his existence is absolute and unparalleled in his unity. And he's incorporeal, he has no body. And he existed prior to this world. And he's the only true object of worship. And then we must believe in prophecy, that there are prophets, and Moses is the greatest of prophets before or after him. And the Torah is a revelation from heaven, and it can never be abrogated. It can never be altered. And God knows the action of all human beings, and there will be rewards for right and wrong. And Messiah will come in the future, and the dead will be resurrected. But interestingly, according to many Jewish writers also, who studied about Moses from their perspective, they say that Moses and the Jewish worldview seem to be rather not talking with much detail about the afterlife, about the hereafter, because they were more concerned about doing justice, establishing the kingdom of God here in this world. About action more than about faith. But that's their worldview that shaped them as a culture and civilization. The Chinese also, everybody has got their worldview, whether they realize it or not. Of course, in this kind of session, we are not going to elaborate on everything. We're just trying to tell you that everyone has got some kind of worldview. And those who are able to explain and educate and share their worldview to their people and convince them, they can develop a more coherent community. Their community will know who they are, what is to be done, and who they are in this particular world. The Chinese, for example, because now we are dealing with China, which is becoming one of the most powerful nations on earth. Of course, their worldview of the modern Chinese may be different from what was understood by Confucius centuries ago. But still, the remnants are there. I remember reading the book by the former higher Minister of Education, the Minister of Higher Education of China, Zhuo Ji. And I mentioned this in one of my writings on the role of universities. he was saying that even though China is a socialist country, but we are interpreting socialism with a Chinese characteristic, mainly from a Chinese worldview, although it is still socialism, because they don't want to follow, say, Russian socialism or Cuban socialism, but socialism with a Chinese characteristic, and that is stated as a policy of the Ministry of Higher Education in China several years ago. Sometimes when you are not very organized, you can't find where the page is. Okay, this is summarized by Professor Charles Moore on the Chinese mind. And Charles Moore is one of the most prominent scholars on Chinese philosophy. Among other things, he was saying that the basic problem of Chinese philosophy and their view, particularly as those espoused by new Confucianist tradition. There are many traditions in China, but the most dominant is the new Confucianist philosophy. Those who develop Confucian thought, but with a new perspective, starting from, say, 12th century onwards. Their most dominant agenda is how to achieve sageliness within and kingliness without, meaning that how to develop power in the world, but yet remain moral and ethical. That's their struggle to develop this unity. Of course, these are concerns of scholars and thinkers, which were trying to educate their kings, their princes, and their common people, their leaders. But this is their dominant worldview for centuries. And then they regard that there is no separation between philosophy and life. They are not emphasizing so much on religion, but philosophy, because to them religion is not necessarily, philosophy is not necessarily religion, because they are slightly more secular in that sense. But to them, you can separate between what is in the mind, which is philosophical, although it's not religious, and what you do outside of your mind. Every action must come from a particular understanding of what is right and what is wrong, what is ought to be, what is not to be. Of course, their dominant worldview is about humanity. There is very little discussion about hereafter. There is no discussion about the soul as such, but about human happiness, human ethical conduct. And then their worldview is grounded in this ethical principle of filial piety, respect for the family, particularly the father and the male members of the family. That became the bedrock of their social philosophy. That's part of their worldview. And they believe in supreme importance of philosophy over religion, because to them religion is mythical, full of superstition to them. And they don't believe in either or. They believe in both, which is quite interesting. But because in Western worldview, the modern ones, they tend to be dualistic. They cannot unify between say, science and religion and philosophy. They cannot unify between this world and the other worldly. But the Chinese doesn't believe in that. They believe it can be both, although the meaning of both may be different. And it's quite interesting also that in this new Confucian philosophy, which dominates Chinese worldview for so long, is that men govern not by law, but by individuals. So the emphasis is not on the letter of the law, but on the development of human beings. Every human being must decide on their own. Don't trust the law per se as such, which is quite interesting. They have books, they refer a lot to Confucius, to Analects, but those are just basic references. They are not determinative as such. So,
to go back to my main point, is worldview is very important. And in Islam, it is most important. It's called Aqidah. And worldview, this Aqidah, for example, if it understood properly, even if the action may not fulfill the demands of the worldview, sometimes, for example, a Muslim may commit mistakes or sins. But if his worldview is correctly understood, and he understands that those sins are mistakes, therefore it gives the possibility of correcting himself or herself. But if his worldview is confused or corrupted, those mistakes will not be understood as mistakes. In fact, he may regard those mistakes as right. For example, right now, because of the influence of secular humanistic worldview, more and more Muslims tend to accept adultery as a human right, whether man with woman or of the same sex. We don't know how many, but more and more. That's why they are prominent. But if their worldview is still correct and authentic, they realize that those behaviors are not acceptable to Islam from whatever perspective, from Sunni, from Shi'i, from Khawarij, from Mu'tazilite, because all traditions will not accept that. Therefore, they will try to ask God forgiveness if they were to commit that. They are not proud of their activity or their action. They try to improve themselves, or even it might take years for them to improve, because a habit which has been done often, it takes time to be corrected. Whatever habit it is, smoking, drinking, even drinking teh tarik sometimes can be addictive. But if the worldview is understood properly, they realize that what is haram, therefore they will not be proud of that. They will be remorseful, they are istighfar, and they want to compensate with better and good behavior. But if your worldview is confused, you will do it when you have a chance to do it. And you are proud of it because you are no longer feeling it is wrong. And there's no need for you to ask for forgiveness and correct yourself if you were to do it. But even if you want to do it, but if you think that this is not wrong, therefore you are going to allow and encourage people to do it if they like to do it. Isn't it? You yourself may not do it, but you think that based on this new secular humanistic worldview, that this part of human right, because these behaviors are not what you determine. It's something because of your biochemical neural development in your brain. It's not by choice you behave like that. Therefore, not so. Even if you may not do it yourself, because to you your biochemical neural reaction in your brain is different, but you are going to allow other Muslims to do that, and not only that, you are going to oppose those who oppose that, calling them as anti-human rights, bigoted, intolerant, and so on and so forth. Because in your worldview, it's not wrong anymore, it's all right. So, the understanding of worldview requires right knowledge, and that will be good in later session, inshallah. What is knowledge? Who are the right interpreters of this knowledge, and so on and so forth. That's why even the Christians, the Catholic and others are talking about this worldview too. That it will determine and shape whatever we think, whether we realize it or not, and however we behave. And that's why in Islam, Aqidah is so central. The difference between, say, a Muslim and a Munafiq, in terms of external behavior, a Munafiq may do the same thing. He may go to Hajj, he may do all the things that people do. But a munafiq do that with a different worldview. He does that in order to show to people he doesn't believe in that entirely. He do it only to pretend, to cover his real unbelief in those things. But physically speaking, externally speaking, you cannot distinguish that. Only God knows that in this particular sense. A believer with a right worldview, he may commit a mistake, but he knows that it's a mistake, and he will correct himself. And even if he cannot correct himself because of weaknesses, many ulama say that if he dies, there is still a possibility that God will forgive him. There is no guarantee, but there is a possibility that God in His mercy will forgive him, or through the shafa'at of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because his worldview still believes in that one God, He is merciful, He is forgiving, and he knows that it is wrong. Except that out of his laziness, out of his weakness, he did not come to the point of asking for forgiveness. But even then, some scholars say that there is a possibility for him to be forgiven by God because of his worldview. It does not mean that we must encourage people to not ask for forgiveness. They will take God for granted. That is wrong. But to understand God as He truly is requires knowledge. That although He is more merciful, He ought to put limit. You cannot associate anything with Him, for example. Let me share again about some early examples of how, when this worldview is understood, it can transform people. It can make them overcome serious challenges, even though they were incapable of overcoming any of these challenges. The case of Abu Bakr, for example. The case of Bilal the Rabah. I told you many times, he was a slave, tortured by his master. He could easily compromise. But his utterance of ahad when he was tortured like that, to many scholars, like Pronaki, for example, for him to utter ahad, it means that he understands the nature of oneness higher than many people, because ahadiyah level of unity is higher than wahidiyah level of unity. He could easily say wahid also means one, not two or three. But hadiyah is God is one with and without any comparison whatsoever. He's alone by himself. So for Bilal, although he was not educated, formally speaking, but he understood it so profoundly that he uttered the most profound level of tawheed. Remember the early hijrah, when some Muslims migrated to Abyssinia. That was in the 3rd or 5th year of hijrah, which means that the inculcation of the worldview was not completed yet. But the Meccan period was the period where they talk about the foundation of the Aqidah. The legal science part came later on in Medina. But the Meccan period was the intensification of this basic part of the worldview, the nature of Allah, the nature of Yawmul Akhirah, and so on and so forth. Remember when the Muslims were confronted by the leaders of Abyssinia, what did this Prophet Muhammad teach you? And Ja'far bin Abu Talib said something which was recorded by historians from Ibn Ishaq onwards. And it's very profound, because what he said are mostly the ethical dimension of the Muslim, but rooted in a very clear worldview, uncompromising in nature. Or many of you know that very well already, but let me just share with you for the sake of those who are quite new. I'm not reading verbatim quotation, but summarizing what they say. Ja'far bin Abu Talib said that we were in ignorance before the Prophet taught these things. We were in ignorance and immorality
worshipping idols, eating dead animals, committing all abomination and shameful deeds, breaking kinship ties, treating guests badly, exploiting the weak by the strong. Then a prophet came to us, whose lineage, truthfulness, trustworthiness, and integrity are well known to us. He asked us to worship Allah alone and to renounce idols, to worship Allah alone. First, we must know the prophet must talk who is this Allah in order to worship him. And we told the story of Bilal, that a man like that understand Ahadiyah level already. That means to understand, not to commit shirk, is to understand Allah Tawheed at the highest level. To announce, to worship Allah alone, to renounce idols, speak truthfully, honor promises, be kind to our kinfolk, helpful to neighbors, stop all forbidden acts, abstain from bloodshed, avoid obscenities and false witness, not to appropriate orphans' property, no slander, chase women. He ordered us to worship Allah alone again, to perform salah, zakat, fast in Ramadan. We believe in him and what he brought. That we believe in him, what he brought. Remember the case of the observation by Abdullah Habib Mohsin Al-Atas. How they look at the Prophet in order to believe in him. Because the Prophet was not just somebody who communicated the truth. And here Prophet Nakib make it very brilliantly in his Islamic scholarism. Prophet Muhammad not only communicated the truth, but he constituted the truth. Meaning not only what he says is important to be listened and obeyed and understood, but his very existence is the truth. His silence is a hujjah. His silence and how he acts is a hujjah. They saw all that. That's why later on, when we talk about the nature of man, we are going to deal a bit more about this. And of course, in my book, Iklif Leadership Model, which Prof. Nakil Atas compiled with the help of many of my colleagues, Dr. Zaidi, I think Sani and Asam, we compiled at the appendix letters of Sayyidina Ali to Malik Ashtar. We compiled also letter of the Umayyad KSN, Chief Secretary, to all the secretaries of his time. We compiled also a letter of Abdullah bin Tahir. Ali bin Abi Talib is a Sahabi. He was writing to the governor of Egypt, Malik al-Ashtar. He was talking about how to be just, how to be kind, merciful to Muslim and non-Muslim. But the basic underlying feature was the worldview there, to believe in Allah, to be aware of His presence, to be concerned about the Yawmul Qiyamah. He was a practical man, Ali bin Abi Talib, because he went to war from a very young age. But when he wanted to develop leadership based on ethics, he grounded that in a particular clear worldview of belief in Allah and Yawmul Akhirah. The KSN, the Chief Secretary of the Umayyad, Abdul Hamid bin Yahya, read this letter, a long letter, and he was a practical man because he was Chief Secretary. He also wrote to all the Chief Secretaries of the Umayyad Empire, again asking them to improve their knowledge, to be wise in advising the rulers, to be kind, to be just, to be humble, not to be arrogant. But the grounding element is a particular worldview toward God, the Prophet, and Yawmul Akhirah. The sense of accountability is all metaphysical. Because God, Yawmul Akhirah, accountability are not seen, cannot be measured, but can be felt by a soul that is concerned about what is right, what is wrong, the nature of reality and truth. And then somebody by the name of Tahir bin Hussein, a general under Al-Ma'mun, Abbasid Caliphate. He wrote a long letter to his son Abdullah bin Tahir, from a general to a governor. A general was a practical man, again about the same thing, to be just, to be kind, merciful to Muslim and non-Muslim, to the woman, folk, to the poor. But the grounding element is still that aspect of reality, to be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
of the accountability to him and the imminence of death, of Yawmul Akhirah. I want to underline that all these statements from practical people, but none of them ever denied the importance of what is in the soul, what is in the mind. A friend of mine who is here now, tonight, came to see me a couple of weeks ago saying that in his organization, they are lacking this particular worldview in order to understand how to move forward. They are good people, brilliant people who have served a long time in this country. They realize that that's very important because sometimes worldviews can be corrupted. Worldviews can be distorted. Even in the very early period, Ibn Khaldun narrated this story in his Muqaddimah. He talked about a statement by the opponent of Sayyidina Ali. He said that Sayyidina Ali was asked by his opponent that why during the time of Abu Bakr and Omar, people did not rebel against them. But during the time there was so much rebellion. And Ali said that because during their time I was their followers. But during my time you are my followers. They were still Muslim, of course, but there were some shifts in their worldview. Ali and his followers, they were educated by the Prophet ﷺ himself. They understand the natural reality, even though they differ, but they knew the limit of their differences. Look at, for example, when Siti Aisha, radiallahu anha, she made her ijtihad and battled against Ali, karamallahu wajhah. But when she realized she was wrong, she asked for forgiveness. And her seeking forgiveness was accepted by Ali. Because in those days, communication was not easy to verify things. Sometimes you make the best decision, the best judgment, but your judgment was not correct. And when you realize that, you are not proud to persist in your error, because your worldview said admit if you are mistaken, even though you are the wife of the Prophet himself, on whose leg the Prophet died. But if you are wrong, you admitted that. Muawiyah also, scholars regard Muawiyah as a great, as a Sahabi, and a pious Sahabi. Because when he realized, after Sayyidina Ali passed away, when he realized what the Prophet thought of Sayyidina Ali, how great the Prophet's opinion of Sayyidina Ali was, he cried. And he realized, if I had known this, I would be more than happy. He realized his mistakes. A correct worldview will know their mistakes and will correct them. Adam ﷺ made a great mistake in heaven when he fell into the trick of Iblis. But he realized that, and he asked for forgiveness, and Allah forgave him. Prophet Nakir reminded me a lot about this. He said, let us not follow the sunnah of Iblis, but follow the sunnah of Adam. We are Bani Adam. When we make mistakes, when we realize mistakes, we must ask for forgiveness and correct that. Improve ourselves. But Iblis, sunnah, he knew he was mistaken. But his worldview was shaped by pride, by jealousy, by anger, because pride, anger, and jealousy are part of the same reality. So rather than admitting that he was mistaken, he asked from God more power and more possibility of confronting Adam, not only in heaven, but down to the end of the world. So worldview is something very profound. It is theoretical, of course. It operates in the mind, in the soul, in the heart. It's not out there. But it determines how the mind works and how we we perform our action. Perakil atas in his Risalah untuk kaum Muslimin. You should try to read it. It's a beautiful Malay. I read the manuscript version of that before it was published, and I encourage him to publish that. He said, Dr. Wan, the idea is already written down in Islamic secularism, but Islamic secularism is too academic. But Risalah untuk kaum Muslimin, there is poetic sense. There are stories there, and the language is so powerful. It is talking about philosophy, but in a very nice academic classical language. Not academic, I mean good language. In the beginning, there were stories. There were stories used by the Sufis before about how worldviews determines how people look at things. First, the simple worldview, like me and my wife now. We are old. Professor Ani is quite young. For those who are just watching, listening, you cannot know this. An old couple at the end of their life, 65, hopefully it's not going to end so soon. After dinner, the husband looked at the wife and saw a black spot on the face of the wife. By the way, I'm paraphrasing and try to add some additional elements. The husband saw the birthmark on the face of the wife. So he asked, my beloved, where were these marks before? When we were young, they were not there. Of course, in Malay, that's very, very poetic. I will try to rephrase myself, and we have got linguist people here, novelists and poet. Wahai Adinda, I'm looking at my wife now. Sejak bila tanda-tanda ini ada, yang dulunya tiada? The wife looked at the man. What's wrong with you now? Something has gone wrong in your worldview. So she answered, oh my beloved, the sign, the mark were all there before. But in the heat of your love and passion, you didn't see them. Wahai kekanda, bintik-bintik ini dia ada dari mula. Tapi ketika itu cinta kanda panas menyala, semua tak ketara. Sania, you got to have this translated. So when we look at things something differently, things that are problematic become problematic. Another story which you told. This is more profound. There was a young princess who liked to comb her hair at the veranda daily at 10 o'clock. Because she does that daily for many years, then these people go there 3 hours before she came up to the veranda because they were waiting some sell cendol, goreng pisang. The moment of her combing was only 10 minutes. But the waiting hours, thousands of people came all the way from Kedah, from Kota Kinabalu, from Manjung, even from Jakarta came. And then after so many years, the crowd became less and less. It remained only a stranger coming from Kelantan, listening, but he couldn't come so early. He came, many decades for him to arrive. So suddenly, there were only 2-3 people waiting to see this princess coming to comb her hair. And then he asked, where are the people? I heard that there were thousands of people. That was many, many years ago when the princess was young. She was beautiful then. But after so many decades, her hair became grey. She was no longer as pretty as she was before. And those thousands who left her only looked at her physical appearance. And physically she has changed, of course. But us who are still here, loyal, we saw that she has become wiser and wiser. Prof. Nakib said the same thing also. He said that Muslims look at Islam only from the external side. And externally Muslims, Islam appears to be weak. Islam is linked to poverty, division, terrorism, backwardness. So many Muslims tend to not be proud of Islam. And in America, there has been studies last several years that almost 23% of born Muslims left Islam annually for the last several years. As many as those who left Christianity. But Alhamdulillah, luckily for Islam, almost the same number of others become Muslims, but not the same with regard to Christianity. They left because they saw the physical side of Islam, quote unquote, which are abhorrent to them. It's linked to poverty, terrorism, but it's not what Islam is. It's not only the physical side which is painted on Islam, like the mirror has been made dirty. But those who saw the true dimension of Islam, many people who became Muslim, from Indonesia, from Malaysia, from Europe, they don't see this physical part. They saw the real essence of Islam. They saw the worldview, the ethics of the great Muslim everywhere, even now, in the life of humble people, the life of humble politicians, humble scholars, humble gardeners, humble parents. They become Muslim not only from what they read from the Quran, but from the behavior of some good Muslim. I read on the website how people become Muslim. Of course, they read the Quran, but they also became Muslim because they met good people. And these good people are not scholars, simple people, taxi drivers, farmers, but they reflect that worldview of Islam. They are not sophisticated, but they understand Arkan Islam, Arkan Iman. Their ethics are very good. And luckily, not challenged with wealth, power, with many other things. So my brothers and sisters, yes, I sense Prof. Zani is looking at the time, because his worldview is determined by time. The joke is very important to keep time. So the purpose for my talk today is to underline two things. First, that every person has got a worldview. That's very important. And worldviews, even though they operate only in the mind, in the soul, in the heart, but they've got tremendous significance in shaping everything else, both in the mind and in our action. They are not impractical, although they are theoretical. I quoted the story of generals, great governors, who stress the importance of philosophy from their perspective. How to be human after coming back from battle. And to be human is very important. Even to go to battle, we must be human, isn't it? What more when we come out from battles? So if we can understand that I think I've made a major contribution tonight. But let me be frank, because it's not easy to appreciate this thing. Because everywhere Muslim scholars like us suffer, because we are accused of teaching something that is entirely theoretical, which has nothing to do with practical problem of the Muslims. Whereas people like us, and better than us before, were solving the problem from the right foundation. Although it takes time for this problem to be solved, but the foundation must be correct. So these are my 2 points tonight. Inshallah, in the next session, we'll go slightly deeper into the content of the worldview and the method which can be arrived at to understand this worldview. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much. So I purposely let Professor Wan go on beyond a few minutes because the stories are quite interesting in itself. Before I open the session to question and answers, I would like to draw your attention to the leaflets that you have in front of you. This is something that we do here at CASIS, and this is apart from the WISE program that you may have heard. The WISE has two versions, WISE in Malay and also WISE summer program, which is in English. This is the Hikmah Fellowship, and this will be featuring on the 26th to the 28th of October, this coming October. And it will feature Professor Wan, Dr. Wan Suhaimi, who is away, I believe, in Singapore. Dr. Farid Shahran is with us tonight.
Yeah.
Dr. Farid Shahran. Dr. Zaidi is away tonight. He's here tonight. And Chiros please, if you are interested, you know the contact number here. This is I think the second edition of this. The first one we
The
had
fourth.
the fourth. Wow. We've had this. Last one was in Johor. So now we're doing this in Kota Damansara, which is nearby. So, well, that's for the point. The announcement. Any question, please? Okay, one. Any other hands? Going once, going twice.
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's go with the first one, please. Yeah. Please introduce yourself. Can you come down somewhere nearer to a microphone? Yeah, please. Is it working? It's not working. Can you get somewhere that it's working? Shazwan, can you try yours? Oh, it's just not working tonight, no?
Maybe you can just pick from there. You can just pick from there. Yeah. It must be the head. Yes. Nice young man. Salam. Yeah.
First, my name, Assalamualaikum, my name is Steve. I am a student from my program, and I have just a little question. Say that we are actually, as a Muslim, we have such fundamental worldview that we hold upon our conception of what right and wrong, and say that we're assuming that secularism is problematic as our own worldview. But as we are trying to preach the dawah and inshallah one day that Muslim will lead the next civilization, but I'm about to ask, like, how do us as Muslim to reach our worldview to non-Muslim as we want to lead people in our worldview, but in a way that the non-Muslim may comprehend and agree upon. Like, maybe, I don't know, is it really possible that we can just constitute in an constitution, like we literally use, we acknowledge Allah and Rasulullah and the other, or maybe is there some kind of way that we may teach our conception of worldview as a universal value?
Thank you.
And do you want to answer this first one, or you?
I think we can wait. We can get one more.
Okay. Ashok, please.
My question is really fast.
Just, I noticed that you mentioned worldview being synonymous with aqidah. So I just wanted if you can elaborate on that, because sometimes in my studies with whys and other things, it seems that sometimes aspects of tasawwuf, have an impact on worldview. So just, especially if we're speaking in Islamic scholarly circles, a lot of times worldview is not used. So is it synonymous with aqidah, but from a broad perspective where we include the amaliyat and all of the other maybe aspects of aqidah that are not qat'i? So that's my question.
Yeah. Thank you, Brother Ashraf. I didn't get the name of the younger person from the Islamic University now, but I think I get the basic tenor of your question, and thank you very much. I think if we can step back a bit in the way we want to deal with our problems, in many of occasion, many seminars we went to, these people are how to do something, how to disseminate Islam. Actually, before we do that, we must first understand Islam thoroughly. And that part of it cannot be taken for granted. Because once we understand that thoroughly, and this goes with the method of Al-Ataf and many other scholars also, when people who understand Islam thoroughly, the how-ness becomes natural to them. But when the understanding of the worldview, legal framework, aqidah, ethical framework are not understood thoroughly, therefore they tend to be rigid and mechanical, and sometimes they tend to be radical because of that, because they don't know how to innovate, what can be allowed to change and what cannot be allowed to change. Sometimes they become too liberal or too restrictive. But once they understand it thoroughly, then they know what can be changed, what can be accommodated, what cannot be accommodated. So it's not about talking about Islam, it's about living Islam. I have got an example in my notes here that, for example, one of the earliest destruction of Muslim were the onslaught of the Mongols in 1258 or 48 AD. Never before Muslims have been affected like that. They thought that was the end of the world already. And after the Muslims were defeated, there were no fight against the Mongols. Of course, the Mongols fought against the Mamluk in Egypt and against Seljuk in Turkey. But less than 40 years, there was increasing Islamization of the Mongol leadership themselves, done by scholars, Sufis, many of whom. And even the youngest son of Hulego, who led the army to destroy Baghdad, his youngest son, together, not together but together, T-E-G-U-D-E-R, became a Muslim and became a sultan and governed for many years. And many others governed after that. And he took the name of Sultan Ahmad. So within 100 years, there were several generations of Mongol princes who became Muslims. You can read this book, I showed to Dr. Zambi the other day when we met. The book by Peter Jackson, not Michael Jackson. The Mongols and the Muslim Islamic world, from conquest to conversion. The last two chapters, long chapters, were talking about the Islamization of the Mongols. It's amazing. Of course, he tried to question their motive. If they converted because they want to obtain political legitimacy. They converted because they want to deal with the Mamluk Muslim sultans. These were possible, but still they were Muslims. And they followed Islam to the best ability. They implement the Sharia. They do not allow their people to drink wine, to do all these things, for example. So we can question the motive all day. But the fact that they practice Islam and they try to observe that personally as well as collectively. So, because the Muslims there, although some part of their worldview or the akhlaq were compromised, they became weakened because the akhlaq was compromised. They became disworldly, they became forgetful of religion, but the understanding was still quite correct, generally speaking. Same thing here also, for example. When the Dutch controlled this part of the world in Indonesia for 400 years, there were very few reports of Muslims living Islam. Because the one who brought Islam here was scholars from firm tradition. Therefore, even though they controlled our trade, our political institution, but our worldview was still basically much ours. But somehow when we became independent, apparently we hear a report of people not only left Islam, but proud of living Islam. And defending those who left Islam as following their human rights, so on and so forth. So to the question of my younger audience just now, that before we preach Islam, we must first understand that. And even if we do preach, we must try to be humble about that. This is my understanding. I may be mistaken, but don't judge Islam through my mistakes, for example. But most importantly, our own moral and ethical life, that will be the one who will be the most powerful weapon, whether we are spreading the right Islam or the right message to live Islam ethically. And that's not very easy. That's why
the answer by Ja'far bin Abu Talib just now was very profound. It was in the very stage of Islamization. It was in the first phase, I think, of the Meccan period. In the first 6-7 years, of 5-6 years. But yet they were saying that we were doing all these things already because we truly believe in Allah and the Yawmul Akhirah. We did not do all these things that we used to do before. They were living an ethical life already. Because they saw that in the man himself, in the Prophet himself, and his family members and his companions. We'll talk about secularization and their worldview later on, inshallah, in other session. But before we start preaching, we must try to preach as best we can. But we must understand first. Understanding takes time. And if we do not understand, we can refer to those who understand better. But what happened to us is that we pretend we understand, even though we don't understand enough. We don't point higher authorities who understand better than us. Therefore, our mistakes will be called the mistake of Islam. By the way, I want to say something. This morning I watched, and I'm very thankful to Allah Ta'ala, the recording of the speech of Mr. Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan. For the first time in my experience, I saw a leader of a big Muslim country who spoke from his heart, talking about the Prophet and what the Prophet means to 1.3 billion Muslims. I've never heard about how the Prophet was spoken of in that audience. And he was not pretending from his face, from his word. And he started correctly. And whenever he spoke with the Prophet, he mentioned Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That to me is a da'wah already. He didn't ask people to become Muslim. But he talked about how and what is a Prophet to 1.3 billion Muslims. He was saying that to try to let the world know that if the Prophet is to us, it's not there. It pains us when you attack our Prophet. Because to us, he is ever living. That is very important. It's a dawah too. He's a scholar of Islam. But he spoke as he knew. And he spoke humbly. And with full conviction, without wanting to be popular. To the question raised by Brother Ashraf, of course, worldview is based on correct aqidah. But worldview is more intensive than aqidah, because worldview, the way Prof. Nakib explains it, because he takes the metaphysical aspect of worldview. This aqidah is statements derived from the Quran and from Hadith, which are accepted by Muslims. But this worldview of the metaphysical type is this aqidah, this statement, were experienced also in living Islam. Meaning that they understand this thing and they elaborate about that. And that's why later on in the next session we talk about the metaphysical aspect, because they are talking about Islam at the level of ihsan. Aqidah is at the level of Islam and Iman, meaning that you explain something based on the truth of the Quran and the Hadith. The statement part. But the metaphysical aspect of the world is that these statements were proven in an ethical and religious life. So therefore, when we say that God is merciful, is kind, you experience that, even in difficulties. But more in success. That's why the higher Sufis would say that adab is all the time. Adab toward God, toward ourselves, in the state of suffering, in the state of success and happiness. That means we are aware of God's presence all the time, every time, even though while we are committing a mistake. When you are committing a mistake, you realize that you are mistaken. Therefore, you hold back and istighfar. And even if you can hold back because you are frightened, you are weak, then after that you istighfar and correct yourself and compensate that with better and good things, for example. So no doubt that worldview of the metaphysical type is based on right aqidah. And right aqidah is based on the Quran and the Hadith, which are accepted by Muslims, generally speaking, based on their scholarly tradition. But these things have been put into practice already by sincere and thinking and knowledgeable Muslims. That's why we're talking about metaphysical worldview, which means that it's based on not just cognitive knowledge, which is true, but based on experiential knowledge as well. That's why they talk about 3 levels in Islam, which means must be based on submission. You must submit to the truth, submit to Allah,
and then based on iman, you may believe in that, because sometimes you may submit, but not with full belief. You submit because of intellectual conversion, because of pressure of the public, because of many other things. So we must submit based on belief. But ihsan is you submit and believe, but by worship as if like you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, as if like you see him, you cannot see him. So the next level is higher, is that certainly he sees you. That requires a constant state of taqwa, because to be aware of his presence all the time. Because as if you see him is based on our imagination. But certainly he sees you is based on certainty that he is ever present. Ka'annaka tarahu, as if, which means it is your own imagination. But fa'innaka yaraka, there is a statement of fact. That whether you see or not, see him or not, he is certainly seeing you. That level is very high level, isn't it? So that's my brief answer there. But inshallah, when we go into the deeper details of how this worldview is arrived at, we will try to give some proof, inshallah. The differences between philosophical, the mutakallimun, and the higher Sufis, how they understand these things.
Can I just clarify?
Yeah, please do.
So would we say if Islam, Iman, Ihsan, right? Normally they say that Iman is covered by Aqidah, Islam aspect is covered by Fiqh, and then Ihsan is covered by Tasawwuf. It seems like my understanding, and then all of them together is the Deen, right? Jibreel to teach the Deen. So would we say it's the Iman element and the Ihsan element would basically be the worldview, or is Fiqh also part of the worldview?
In the writing of Al-Baghdadi on the Muslim groups, he talked about the Sunni worldview, Aqidah al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and who are the Sunnis? So they say about for example, the theologians, which talk about the Iman aspect, naturally. I mean, talking about it, writing about it. And they talk about Mufassirun, Muhaddisun. And they talk about also the Ahli Sufiyah. They talk about Ahli Lughah. They talk also about the Ghazi who defend Islam. And they talk about the common people who share the same worldview. Therefore, let's not split the group as such. As long as we accept this thing depending on the degrees of our knowledge and certainty, we all share the same worldview. The difference will be on the depth of it. For example, a simple Muslim who may not experience ihsan, is still a good person, a good Muslim. They are solihun in that sense. But if their iman is deeper, they are of higher level. So there are degrees of similar goodness, like that. Yeah? That's why they talk about Nabiyun, Siddiqun, wa Shuhada, wa Salihun. These are the degrees of excellences, as mentioned in the Quran. Yeah? So the fuqaha must understand worldview also, because to determine what is right, what is wrong, and to act upon that requires knowledge and conviction and justice as well. So you cannot be a faqih in the true sense without being a believer. You cannot perform salah without having knowledge of God, but your knowledge is not as deep as a higher kind. Yeah, the knowledge of the awam, but they are still Muslims and good Muslims. They are not burdened with more things than what they are at a particular moment in time. But we cannot demarcate. Okay, you are Islam is fiqh only, but not involving imam. That we cannot do, because in Islam we do not separate all these kinds, but they are degrees. To be a Muslim, to understand Islam, you must have iman naturally. But the degree may not be as deep as the next level. And then the higher level is the highest, of course, with Islam. Islam also must be to be a Muslim or a Muslim too, and a mu'min. But the degree is higher level, as such. We are talking about levels. We are not talking about separate entities and realities. They are interconnected. Yeah? Thank you.
I think, Prof, if I may follow up on that question, I think there's also a worry that some people might say, I may not have the degree of understanding of worldview as this person, so is my Islam lesser in a sense? I think that's the continuation of that. that, the consequence of that question. Would you care to comment on that?
Of course, that one must understand oneself. For example, I know my limitation in knowledge. I will, for example, know that I'm certainly not at the level of, say, many of my teachers, present or past. What more like Al-Ghazali, what more like the Sahabas. So, to admit that we are not the same stature is to know ourselves. But it does not mean that we can improve ourselves and be the best that we can be, using them as our model. I don't think any sane Muslims are at the same level of Abu Bakr, for example, even if they are. But to admit their humility is all right. So to say you are lesser Muslim, that is not quite correct. We are Muslim. Yes. But out of our own tawadhu, we must think of our mistakes and improve ourselves. We must think of our lack of knowledge and try to improve ourselves. Yeah? That's why we cannot judge somebody who commit a mistake to you are kafir unless you are clearly kafir. We ask them to forgive, to be forgiven by God, even if they are doing big mistakes. Because maybe they are forgetful, maybe they are not aware, maybe they are ignorant. But they themselves must know. Of course, some sociologists, I read a PhD thesis, a very good PhD thesis, but from a sociological perspective. He studied one small town in this region. He studied the Islam of the roti canai maker, the Islam of the imam, the Islam of the politician, the Islam of the farmer, and the fisherman. So he said there are so many different Islams. The Islam on this particular issue, the imam said differently from the fisherman, from the pasar malam seller, from the. So in my discussion, when I said, but did you tell the fisherman that indeed your position is different from that of the imam? He said, I didn't ask him, because if you were to ask him, he would say that certainly the imam is correct. I just don't know. But sociologists, generally speaking, they are thinking that people interpret religion according to their own position. But there is hierarchy of understanding. But that doesn't mean that they are less Islam in that sense. They are still Muslim. Where they are with God is God's knowledge. Sometimes somebody who understands little but they are sincere, they may be higher than a professor at CASIS in the eyes of God, for example. So we can make the judgment based on our sincerity, our dedication. Yeah? That only Allah will know. And we ourselves can estimate ourselves. But we don't say you are, but do we must know? Of course, we have hierarchies, of course. Of scholarship also, but only of scholarship. Not with regard to whether they are also living a hierarchy of heaven, that's different. And there are mujtahid, absolute mujtahid, relative mujtahid, and awam, and so on and so forth. Wallahu a'lam.
Any questions? Yes, one. Any other hands? Two. All right, let's go with you, sir. Please introduce yourself.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Gadram Abedi. I have a question. In your view,
Can you speak to the microphone, please? There we go.
in your view, Professor, is the revelation a part of the Islamic metaphysics, or it is the metaphysics of Islamic worldview?
I don't get your question. Can you rephrase that, please?
Is the revelation
Is revelation, please?
one of the mahulat, one of the topics of Islamic metaphysics, or it is the whole of metaphysics of Islam?
Thank you. You want to get the second question also, or you want to answer this one?
Yeah, we'll get one more.
We'll get one more. Yes, sir. Yeah, you may.
But this is not working.
Okay, you may use this one.
Or you can try the tire, it's working.
So
Assalamualaikum. I would like to inquire.
Your name, please?
Oh, yeah. My name is Fikri. I'm IIUM graduate. Okay. So I would like to inquire pertaining or seek clarification pertaining to worldview, whether the worldview that you mentioned, Prof, is something qat'i or absolute, and it's fixed in comparison to Islamic worldview that is diverse and has multiple dimension. Because if it's fixed and one, which follows after that is a binary understanding. If your worldview is right, then you're right, and if you have different worldview on this, then you're wrong. I would like to refer to a recent controversy by a renowned scholar who has a worldview that this world is a world of tribulation for mankind, and therefore any injustice should not be addressed with protest or violence. In comparison to other worldview, which see this world is also an abode of tribulation, but the tribulation is for you on how you want to address the oppression and the injustice, whether you want to be silent or address it. So that's my question.
When listening to all questions like this, it makes me don't want to speak like this. It shows how ignorant we are, but they asked me to speak, so I got to speak. Anyway, your question very, very important. If I may get the question correctly, if revelation is based on metaphysics, yeah, or if metaphysics itself is revelation, is that generally your question? It is related. Of course, if you are asking as a Muslim, then certainly revelation is the basis of metaphysics, and in all Muslim discussion of Aqidah in particular, they talk about the nature of the Quran. That it is a word of God given to the Prophet verbatim. The intellect of the Prophet did not interfere into the wording of the wording arrangement of the revelation, although he's human. Of course, now modern Muslim thinkers, influenced by secularism, try to bring that. One of them is my former teacher, Fadl Rahman, may Allah forgive him. So of course, from the Muslim perspective, our worldview must be based on revelation. But it's not only revelation, it's also based on the statements of the Prophet himself, because he would complete what was not directly mentioned by the revelation. That's why in our worldview also, the Prophet is a very important figure in our epistemology of revelation. Because without the Prophet, we don't know how to interpret that and how to put that into practice. For example, if the revelation says, "Delu, fawa aqrabul taqwa," be just, because they are closer to taqwa. How do we practice this justice? Fasbir, be patient. But how do we be patient? What are the limits of patience? Therefore, the worldview is based on revelation, but also based on the agreed upon statement and practice of the Holy Prophet. And even in our view, they will mention that the Prophet is not alone. He was not living in a vacuum. He has got family members. He has got companions who witness all these dimensions, because otherwise even the Quran cannot be recorded. Therefore, with the Prophet, it automatically linked to his Ahlul Bayt and his companion. So in our worldview, all these things are very important in order to situate our trust in the absolute veracity of the Quran and the reliability of the approved hadith and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But in other tradition, even though they may claim that they are their worldview is based on the revelation, but they seem to be not having evidence of the revelation that was given to their prophet in the similar language. They say that it's based on revelation, but where is that revelation? In what language was this first revealed? Verbatim or not? On that part, they agree that these are not quite certain. And because of that, they need to revise regularly the content of some of their worldview. And this goes to what our second questioner was asking just now, whether worldview in Islam can be different or not. It depends on what aspect of it. If on the nature of revelation, it cannot differ. Because if some Muslims say that, some Muslims were to say that, for example, the prophetic intellect interfere in the wording of the Quran, like one scholar in the West, Muslim scholar said that. Because he said that the Quran, the message was perfectly given to the Prophet Muhammad SAW, but the word that came out is not God's word, because God doesn't speak Arabic. Arabic is the language of the Arabs. So what came out is the Prophet's interpretation of the words, or the message, perfectly given to him. But then he can explain how the Muslim later on separate between the Quran, Hadith Qudsi, and normal Hadith. Because the Muslims from the beginning knew that there are three separate narratives that came out from the mouth of the same man, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Because they knew that there are three different narratives. One is Hadith, the Quran per se, which there was no interference whatsoever. One is Hadith Qudsi, which means God talked about himself, but in the word of the Prophet. And it's not normal Hadith as such. So there are differences. Like for example, in the Sunni school of thought, there are some stark differences between the Maturidi and Ash'ari school, but they are still within the same ambit of correctness. Between the Ahli Tafsir and the Sufiyah, there are some differences also, but they are still with the same. The Mutakallimun understood already things correctly, but they did not fortify their understanding with experience. Therefore, when talking about the nature of God's existence, they write correctly, but they can elaborate it because they don't experience that. So the Sufis, with experience, can elaborate on that. The idea of fana and baqa. For example, when Allah says that everything instead of fana, what remains baqa is His aspect. The Mutakallimun explain that, but explain that only to the level of their knowledge without experience. But the higher Sufis understood that the expression of the Mutakallimun, but they experienced also some of these things. Therefore, they elaborated that. On the surface, it seems like there are differences between the Mutakallimun's interpretation and that of the Sufi. But they are not differences into a fundamental, but into a depth and degree only. Because some higher Sufis, they are also great Mutakallim, for example, like Raniri and Ghazali himself, and Salih Razi later on, Mara Rumi as well. So they are not either or as such. But but your question just now with regard to the word tribulation, that is quite simple, because in the Quran itself you talk about this world in a state of tribulation. Man is born in a state of loss, of trial. How do you respond that? It's based on your understanding of your worldview. Some you must challenge, and the Prophet did that all the time. I mean, some of the time. Some they accept. Why migration happened? Hijrah happened to Abyssinia because they knew that they were not supposed to challenge. They were not equipped to challenge. And then they migrated also to Medina because they thought that they could respond better over there. Therefore, how to respond to tribulation is not clear cut. That's why when Pakistan, Sister Sania, she's from Pakistan. When Pakistan was to be created, there were some great ulama from Deoband who said that it was not necessary to create a separate Muslim nation. They were the same. They were from the same fiqh mazhab. They were Hanafi. They were all Maturidi. But when interpreting about a particular local situation, they differ, and that difference is quite alright. people like Madudi, Awala Madudi, people like Iqbal, and many others also, yeah, and some others who migrated to India, to Pakistan, they formed Jamaat Ulama Al-Islam, as opposed to Jamaat Ulama Al-Hind, for example. They believe that the Muslims must be separated and must have separate nation from the Hindus, because if the Hindus became the majority, their freedom will not be guaranteed. But those are ijtihad. It doesn't impinge on the fundamental of the worldview. That's what I was trying to say. And in this political matter, we can differ. But right now, because politics, we raise it to the level of Aqidah. And that we should not allow, because then you are making it a certain element of your worldview. We should not allow that. That's why in the past we said that when Aisha realized her political decision was erroneous, she admitted her mistake and asked for forgiveness. And when Muawiyah realized that he was mistaken in judging Sayyidina Ali, he also expressed his remorse and regret. Same thing also Sayyidina Hassan, who was a caliph and a legitimate caliph, but because he felt that if he were to insist on his right, there will be more bloodshed. So because of his concern for the Ummah, he declined and resigned and abdicated from his position. These are all ijtihad, and because of that, they are great. They are in our history, in our consciousness. So dealing with the world, we can differ. But if we realize we are wrong, we correct ourselves. Perfect men, except for the Prophet, are not perfect because they don't make mistakes. But they are perfect because they correct their mistakes. And that requires sincerity, courage, and knowledge, of course. Thank you very much. Yeah, Prof. Dani asked me to remind that in the past, our great ulama, they were tortured. Imam Shafi'i himself, right? And many other scholars, they were in prison. Ahmad bin Hanbal, he was whacked by Al-Ma'mun's people, and Al-Ma'mun himself. As an historian, he was responsible for killing hundreds of scholars who refused to accept the idea that the Quran was created. The Muslim condemned the errors of the Mu'tazili school of thought. But I did not recall the ulama who opposed that position rebelled against the leadership of Al-Ma'mun. He was replaced by somebody else, and that was somebody else who revived and reinstate the proper majority school of thought. Dealing with revelation is depending on our own state of so Ibn Taymiyyah also, he was tortured in the prison. And many others as well. So how we respond to that? It depends on our own situation. But to rebel requires more than just a statement, because you must take into consideration also what is going to affect society as a whole. Ibn Taymiyyah in his book Kitab Al-Hizbah fi Islam talked about that also. To do amal ma'ruf and munkar, you must be sure that the munkar will not increase after your activity. You must calculate, you must discuss, so that when you start a reform movement, the result will not be more disruption. And I think Dr. Mahathir's position in the statement in the nation address last few days, I think is quite correct. He was criticizing the West, and by the way, his statement was very good. I share with my family members also. His criticism of the West, of the rich countries of the world, for example, and in how they were trying to destabilize weaker nations, hoping that democracy can be established, but it doesn't get established overnight like that. On those matters, I think he had courage to speak like that in that forum, and he'll be concerned on that point.
Is there any last pressing question? No? Do you want me to call it a night? It's a wonderful Saturday night. We have a few more sessions to go. We have 3 more in this particular edition. I, on behalf of Sawan, on behalf of Dr. Khaled and CASIS, as CASIS, I suppose, thank you very much for your patience. It has been a wonderful evening, and we have 3 more sessions to go on the 19th of October, and the week after that we have the Hikmah Fellowship. And most welcome to get in touch with the people responsible for this. And then on the 3rd year of November and the 14th of December. Thank you very much again. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The idea of tyranny over justice.
Some of them here. To ask